I don't think I'm using my garden beds to their full potential. Last year was the first year that I did the square foot gardening method. And while things grew, this year I want to maximize my harvest by having fuller garden beds and making use of succession planting. So it'll be a bit of a test year. With fuller garden beds, this should help minimize any weeds because they won't have room to grow. So this year will be a bit of a test year, but it means I get to do a little bit more of what I love, and that's the planting. With only 3 garden beds, the planting goes pretty quick. The overall goal this year is to move from planting everything at once to more of a succession type planting system. So it'll be planting in waves so I can have more of a continuous harvest and not have everything ready all at one time. Let's head back on inside and we'll take a look at my spreadsheet planning system.
We spent years dreaming about a homestead, but dreams don't grow much on their own. You have to plant them. Right now, our homestead is mostly just trial, error, and a few packages of seeds. We're figuring out which starting method actually works and which ones are just hype. We're trading the concrete for the garden, learning to grow our own future from the ground up. It's messy, it's new, and we're taking you along for every single sprout.
So this year I'll be direct sowing more plants such as peas, beets, Swiss chard, spinach earlier on in April. Even though that there's a risk of frost by planting at the end of April, these plants can tolerate the cold a little bit easier. And the cold weather can help reduce things like pests and also have an earlier harvest. So then that spreads out the workload so that not everything is done and ready at once. However, because it seems like April is taking longer to warm up this year, that kind of shortens the planting window that we have. So on my spreadsheet here, I've copied over everything from last year. So everything highlighted in yellow is what needs to change and be updated. I have left that there so that I can tell what I planted last year, what worked, what needs to change, and consider some crop rotation in there. Everything that's teal is perennials that should come back, is hoping the right word. The garlic, I planted that late last fall just before the snow, so that is expected in a few areas here. And so in my garden beds, I've actually marked out the squares by using rocks. So then I can easily take what's on my garden bed map and translate that into what should be planted where on my garden bed. And so you can see I have the 3 garden beds here. This back one is the one against the fence. There's another fence on this side over here. So the first thing that I did was started by placing the larger plants. So we've got the bell peppers, the cayenne peppers, the tomatoes. We've got a few tomatoes in pots. And something new this year that I'm going to be trying is the cucamelon and the patio snacker cucumber. So this patio snacker is supposed to be a little bit more, you can grow it in smaller spaces, and so we're going to give that one a try, especially since I have limited space and you can always use more plants, right? A more variety of plants, right? The eggplant is also new for me, so I'm excited to try that one out this year. And I've got one in a pot along the fence line and one in one of my main garden beds. So along this fence line here, one of my goals is to have a cattle panel trellis along the fence line here. So then I can grow these cucumbers vertically and have them climb up the trellis. And so then that'll help maximize my space, but also give the cucumbers or other vertical plants in the future that I plant there some room to grow. Air can flow through the leaves, and so it helps to prevent things like powdery mildew. So peas are something I want to plant earlier this year since I've learned that they're a cool season crop. In the past, I waited until after the last frost date to plant these, and they did okay, but I think they would probably do a lot better and thrive more in the cooler season. And I think that will give me a chance to maximize my harvest as well, because I can start with growing peas first, and once those peas finish, then I can replace those with beans, and the beans will do much better in a warmer season. Carrots are another thing that I would like to do as a succession plant. I haven't placed them on this map yet. These are the ones at the bottom here that I still want to put in the bed somewhere. And so carrots are one that I would like to succession plant, so I can plant some earlier in May, and then that will give me a little bit of an earlier harvest if I want some smaller carrots, or I can let them go a little bit longer. If I harvest early, then I can plant another round even a few weeks later in another garden bed, so that some different harvest times. If I harvest some of the carrots that I plant in May, then I can replace those with beans or cucumbers or whatever. So let's pick a spot for carrots. They're a smaller plant, so I'm thinking let's put them kind of on the edge here. And we might as well do those peas right away too. I'm thinking putting those peas on the edge here, and then those can later become beans once the warm weather hits. So spinach is another crop that tends to bolt when the warm weather comes, and it can also affect the taste, so it can become a little bit bitter. So that's one that we want to plant early on. So let's pick a spot here for some spinach. Again, it's a smaller crop, so it's better to go on the edge, so we'll keep the larger plants in the center and more medium to small plants so you get closer to the edge of the beds. And then once the heat comes, we can replace this with Swiss chard or kale, as they tend to be a little bit more heat tolerant, and they also get a bit of shade from some of the larger plants around it. Swiss chard and kale are good because you can harvest those repeatedly throughout the summer, as well as do a bit of succession planting so that you have different harvests throughout the season. So bok choy is a new one for me as well. This plant we want to plant as well in like late April, early May. It also doesn't handle the heat very well, so that is one we will replace. So let's put that one on here as well. So bok choy, this one will maybe put into beans. So last year I tried planting Swiss chard, cilantro, kale by seed in the back garden bed, and they didn't germinate because of root competition with having a tree on the other side of the fence in the neighbor's property. And so this year I want to try a different approach. Instead of direct sowing crops, I would like to use starters instead, as they have a more established root system already, and so they have a stronger chance of surviving and thriving there. As well, root crops, which are slower growing, can have a better chance of succeeding in this back bed. So beets can handle some heat as well, but they're still considered more of a cool season crop. So we'll plant them early and potentially try and do another round in early August once things cool down. Maybe we'll try planting them here. Beans is just an easy one because I've always had success growing those in my garden. So we need the kale and the Swiss chard. So on the bottom here, I've got a bit of a reference so that I can tell how many plants per square foot that I can plant, as a quick reminder so I don't have to look it up every year. So for which I should put in alphabetical order. So kale, we got 1 plant per square foot, and Swiss chard, we got 4. So let's put the Swiss chard here. And maybe the kale over here. Beets are root crops, so we can also try planting them in the back. So I might, I've got a small lemon balm plant here, which I'm hoping will come back because it's great for tea. And so let's see if I can plant some beets behind it. And we can maybe put some carrots here. And see how that works. You know what, I might put the carrots over here, and then so they can get a bit of shade, and then might get some starter plants. I might put some starter plants here so that I can give it an experiment to see what is going to grow there. So let's maybe try some tomatoes. I think I'll try cilantro here again, but it'll have to be started. And that is also an early cool season crop. So I still have a few spots to fill out here, but the idea is once the large plants are plotted down here, then I can start thinking about putting herbs and flowers around the borders of the bed so that it helps fill out the garden beds. Flowers and herbs have some benefits and can help alter taste, like make something sweeter, or can help prevent pests. So for example, I'm planning on growing nasturtiums, which are known as a trap crop, and because they attract pests like aphids, and they keep those away from our other plants. They also trail nicely over garden beds. So last year I did try growing nasturtiums, and something was definitely eating them instead of my other plants. So I never actually got to see flowers on them. I'm hoping this year we'll get to that point where I can have flowers, and I just need to better monitor what is eating those plants. Although I couldn't tell that there was any bugs on it, so it could have been a larger animal. So that one I want to monitor a little bit closely this year to see what is happening there. Marigolds are really good for tomatoes because they can help deter certain pests, including nematodes in the soil, and may help reduce insect pressure. Calendula is another one I'd like to include this year. Very good for your skin. Another new flower for me this year is Alyssum. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but I've got a pink and a purple variety, and so these ones help attract beneficial insects, which in turn helps control the pests we don't want. And it's also great for borders. For this back bed, I'm thinking of having more herbs in there. It may get a little bit more shade just from the trees, being closer to the fence line. As well, that seems like what has been growing the best there. So I'm going to be filling the spaces out with lots of herbs. Even looking at maybe seeing if I can find a non-invasive sage one, which is good for tea and cooking. And if you'll notice in the garden pots as well, we're pairing like tomatoes with basil, or eggplant with thyme, or marigolds to help fill out those pots, but also have that companion planting benefit. And so should add one to the cucumbers here too. So this is definitely still a test year for me. So there's lots of things I'm trying new this year, so really trying to get out of my element, develop my expertise. I'm expecting some things to work and some things of course aren't, to really learn and to improve each season. It's more about moving from just planting things to having more of a system, understanding my garden area. And I hope you stay tuned and follow along with us as we will be updating you with our garden journey along the way. so then you can see what is working, what doesn't. And if you're gardening in a short season, such as us in Zone 3, would love to hear how succession planting and planting earlier in the year before the frost date, how has that worked for you? What are you trying differently this year in your garden? Would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.